So I was welding the other day, and it got bright real quick. So we have a problem with the auto darkening lens. So let's see if we can take this apart and see maybe what the problem is. Now, if you haven't done this before, it's relatively straightforward. You have this protective lens on the front that has to come off. Here's our shade dimmer switch. And then there's a wire bail holding the lens assembly itself. So let's give this a shot. Now the easiest way to get this adjuster off is to pull it up a little bit so you get yourself a little bit of a gap. And then take two flathead screwdrivers, one flat against the shell and the knob, and just give them a little bit of a twist together. Boom. Pops right off. Next, you have this plastic nut. No problem. Your little indent here. And then the wire bail comes off like so. Go ahead and pop the lens out. There we have it. Now, I already took the liberty to see if this would split, and indeed it does. So the way on this particular model you go about this, I found starting where this adjuster wire comes out, there's enough of a gap to go ahead and insert a smaller flathead screwdriver and basically just shimmy and twist this a little bit all the way down, gingerly, nicely. And you do this all around the sides. It takes a little bit of finesse, but she'll pop apart, and we'll see what's inside. So, here we have the control circuitry, and what do you know it? We have two, appears to be lithium 3-volt batteries. CR2335s. Now let's go ahead and stick a voltmeter and sample these and see what we get. Go to continuity tests just to make sure our leads are working. Good. Now those are 3 volt, so the range will try 20 volts. as 2 volts would be too small. And we have a positive and negative coming to the circuit board. Alright, battery number 1, we have 2.99 volts. Battery number 2, we're below 1 volt. Let's go to 2 volt range. So we're hovering below 1 volt. So I would say we got something going on with this particular battery. Let's do some further exploring and see what we can find. Alright, here's what we got going on. To further test this, I acquired these AAA 3-volt battery packs with on-off switches. I might use these to make a remote battery pack and get rid of these button cells, so I can just use commonly available AAA batteries. I've gone ahead and soldered some jumpers here, and I tin the ends, and then we'll just hook these up to the positive and negative node points on the circuit board. And then we should be able to power this to 3 volts, and then we could shine a light on the sensor, on the light sensor, and see if we can get it to trigger. And then that way we'll know all the circuitry is working, and it's just this one bum battery. Alright, here we go. Alrighty. Alright, now that we have that hooked up, go ahead and turn that on. Then we'll double check and verify we've got power coming here. Okay, 2.53. This battery's probably drawing a little bit or interfering with the fresh AAAs. Alright, we'll give her a test. Alright, I had to sidetrack a little bit off camera. For some reason, I couldn't really figure out why. When I hooked this up, even though I mapped out the positive and the positive and negative off of the battery, I ended up desoldering and removing this. Because even though I hooked this up the way I thought it should be hooked up, this little chip right here was heating up, which made no sense to me. So I got rid of the battery, and then I thought, well, what would happen if I flipped the polarity? So I did that, and along with this battery not being in, and for some reason it's working. So what's marked as positive and negative, I just flipped it around and it seems to be functioning. So we'll get this set up and we'll indicate it turning on and off into some light. Alright, so here we are with the makeshift battery off and this pointing up into some tube lights, and you can see the solar panel trying to activate this. Now watch when I apply power. You can see it's now functioning off of the batteries, but these tube lights aren't powerful enough to generate a decent voltage from the solar cell. Okay. On, off. Can also dial the brightness and darkness of the shade. Alright. So that seems to be functioning. Let's go take a peek at some sunlight. Alright, so here we are outside. Battery pack off, just the solar panel into the sun, it's activated. Now if I cover up the solar panel, you can see it's no longer producing power, it's not working. I uncover the panel, we have our shade working. Now, battery pack's on, and I'm going to cover up the solar panel again, and you can see it's working. So we're running off battery power, balanced to both sides, uncover the solar panel, battery off, cover the solar panel, not working. So you can see why you want your batteries to work, just in case you're in a tight spot. No battery pack, battery pack. Alright. Okay. And the dimmer works. Okay. Nice. Alright, so with those tests out of the way, I feel it's safe to say that aside from this confusion on the polarity hookup, everything seems to be in order, and I can go ahead and get this battery out and then come up with some way to rig these up into the helmet and make some leads that come out of the case, so on and so forth, whatever. So another test I failed to mention, if you're curious if your solar cell is working, so you can take a light, energize the solar cell, and then it's marked out here, positive and negative on the board where the two leads come off the cell, and you can hook up to those. Alright, at this distance you can see we got a I'm not getting a good contact here. Ooh, we had 3 volts. Lift it up to get a wider spread. Okay. I'm kind of Mickey Mouse holding this, but we're getting almost up to 5 volts. So that's another way you can test that, make sure it's functioning. So there we go, nice. Alright, so before I start desoldering these, I'm gonna just make a little paint mark here for positive, so I don't forget. And what I believe to be positive over here. You know, I'm just testing this with the polarity indicator on the multimeter. But if I run into an issue with the other battery pack, I'll just flip the polarity. Alright. Alright, got the iron all warmed up. So go ahead and get these guys out. Working behind the camera here, so try my best. Yoink. Yoink. Alright. So there's a few ways you can go about popping these out. You can use a desoldering braid. This stuff, it's copper with a flux and is amazing. Put that over the solder, put the iron on top, and it wicks it right up. This is old Radio Shack, when Radio Shack used to be Radio Shack. And what happens is as this stuff ages, the flux goes bad, and it becomes almost seemingly unusable for wicking. You can reconstitute it by adding a liquid or gel flux to this. I don't have any on hand, so I can't really bring this back to life at the moment, but you can bring this stuff back. So what we're gonna do, okay, what I'm gonna do is just pull up on that old battery a little bit. Okay, give us something to kind of grab. Okay, you can see this. And just get in there, tip of your iron. Okay, and I just heated that up and I lifted. Okay, and it broke free of its pad. Same with this side. And if you have a setup like this, you know, I'm constantly trying to make sure I don't snap these wires off of their contacts, which I've already done twice. I just didn't show you me fixing it. That's why I got it clamped, you know. Pull heat, pull up, and okay, and these pop right out. No need to butcher these, you know. Go out and buy yourself, you know, a friggin' soldering iron. They're cheap. Under like 10 bucks. You know, something like this, 30 watts. will last you a very long time. You can do a lot of work with one of these. Not so great for micro stuff, but get yourself an iron. No need to be hacking. Alright, so here we go. That pops out. So I'll do some head scratching and then show you what I come up with. Let's take a look at these batteries. Alright. So that's how they both sat. Exactly the same. The welded tabs are in different orientations, but they're mounted to the same polarity, same face. Okay, one on positive, one on negative. So this one, positive on top. Okay, you can see it in the meter. If I go the other way, you can see the reverse polarity indicator. So, positive on top, positive on the marking side. We go to this one, the one that was an issue. Okay, positive on top, negative. Oh, well, yeah, we get a reverse polarity. Positive on the bottom shows up non-reverse polarity. Okay, so opposite of this one. So I wonder if the degradation of this battery chemically had some form of like a chemical-induced reverse polarity when it broke down. So, not really 100% sure, but, you know, I know things like that can occur. So, here we go. Black magic. Onward. So, after some head scratching, here's what I came up with. Drilled some holes basically above where the battery's set. And we got 2 twin lead wires here. And we'll end up attaching one to each side to the positive negative pads on the circuit board. And then those will poke up through here, and then we got zip ties to act as a binder and a stop to kind of like a strain relief to keep this from pulling out. And then that'll just mate up and solder to these packs. And to mount the battery packs, I laid out and just drilled 4 holes, two holes for each battery pack. All right, and those are just gonna sit vertically. Due to clearance issues and whatnot in there, it's just the best position. And to mount these, you could use anything. You could use zip ties, this, that, the other, which is what I was going to do. However, I decided to just make up, this is a 14 gauge solid copper wire, and those just go through. And then I'll just twist tie this to lock the battery pack in. And the reason I did that is because if any point in the future, if I got to change the batteries, and I'll have to cut the zip tie, and if I don't have a zip tie handy, a piece of wire is the first thing I'm going to grab to remedy that repair or that battery replacement anyway, so might as well just go with the wire. But it'll allow me to kind of just reuse it a few times. So we'll get to the assembly. So, as an aside, I'll quickly show you how I laid out these holes. Although simple as it looks, you know, as if I just use the top of this Inweld symbol as a reference line. I actually did some layout to make sure I wasn't punching through it, just for shits and giggles. Knew roughly this battery is going to be sitting about there, but to locate everything, I started by using this square shape here. This is from the molding process. It's centered in the shell. So I used this as a reference, and each battery pack sits just to the side of that. Okay. Knowing it's going to be like that. So I basically took this measurement from the top of the pack to the top of the shell, plus from the center of the battery pack, so half of the distance of the battery pack added together. Put that number into your combo square. And then, even though this has a curvature, you can get a general straightness, and just eyeballed it and found that, oh, that measurement basically rides right there. So I just raised this up a hair, like a 1/4 inch, readjusted this to compensate. And then you come back down on the back side. Fucking lighting. Okay, you can see my witness line there. And then I just used the edge of this and I just scribed. Bam. Now I know where where this plane is. And then took the battery pack, lined up with the edge of that. Take your pick, make a scribe line on each side. Do that for both sides. Drill your holes and you're done. But you can do whatever you want on your helmet. Alright, pop this apart. And just in case you didn't understand how to open this earlier. Again, this is where your dimness or your shade adjustment knob wire comes out. And that's a good starting point for this type of unit. And you can kind of get in there, give a twist, 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 twist. Twist, oops. Okay, and that comes apart. And this, you know, there's some clearance issues to where you might route your wires out, but this is a good place to start. These two markings here, this is where the batteries sit. They would be underneath this. So I just went out through. On a side note, you also have to take into consideration clearance for this wire bail. Okay, primarily right here. Give you another look. it's set up, this bail just barely clears this when everything's all buttoned up. Okay, so you know, if you put anything in the way, there's a chance you're gonna pinch or not be able to get this in and out. So you gotta also think about locating all that stuff. Okay, which I did earlier, being a bunch of marks, but decided to go this way because it seems simpler to me. Okay. Alright, stop by dropping this assembly back in, and I can't speak for every unit, but on something like this, it may or may not pop out. This one does. Drop that like that. Okay, it can be finicky a little bit. Alright, there we go. Again, pinning this to protect these, to save the headache of resoldering. Right. This iron warmed up. Pro tip, you notice, so this is a cold iron right now, but you can see that there's, you know, tinning on this tip. You know, when you're done using your iron, and for cleaning your tip, I like to use, this is just a stainless steel, stainless steel wool, the coarse type, and you just keep a chunk of that around, and it's perfect for cleaning your tips off, and it doesn't, you know, corrode. But you want to leave that tinned, so when this cools off, like this tip has a bit of iron in it, so ferrous oxide builds up. You get the rust color, but that keeps the tip from oxidizing and keeps it ready to go each and every time. So always tin your tip when you're done. You know, keep it clean. Otherwise, you gotta scrub it down to bare metal and re-tin it. Alright, get both of our jumper leads prepped and ready for tinning. So we'll get those going. And these are longer than I need, so I'll trim everything down when I'm done. Also like to note, this is used wire, so it's always good to take your multimeter and use continuity test to you know, verify that there's no breaks in this wire at all. It'd kind of suck to put everything together to find out that you got a bum wire. So check your materials if it's used or new. Even new stuff can be kind of cruddy for some reason. Alright, I like to have little mini clamps around, even these you know, the heavy duty paper clip things. I always think they look like the those ships from Star Wars. I can't remember the name of them. Star Wars clips. But you can hold little work pieces like that. Just radiate a little heat in there. Boom, boom, boom. And then, you know, basically kind of like your welding. The solder flows to where the heat is. Oops, out of frame. and then go to the opposite side, you know, it'll suck it right through. Okay. One Mississippi. Preheat. Okay. There we go. Alright, we got our jumper leads threaded through the top half of the case. Alrighty. So this twin lead is marked with one white band. We're going to call that our positive, so we'll line those up with the marks we made. Okay, here we go. Give that a little, there we go, give that a little hit. There we go. Got a lock. Come on now. Come on. Okay, it'll lock. Alright. Alrighty. So, there's that. And ideally, it'd be nice to take a little rubbing alcohol and clean up the residue from the, well, I'm using flex cord wire. That can cause corrosion on electrical components down the road, but we'll call that good for now. Okay, close this up. Double check to make sure we're going positive, positive, negative, negative. Now we can route our adjuster knob. Alright, come on, baby. sure this is all seating properly. Having all these extra wires makes everything a little more finicky. Come on, get in your seat. There we go. Okay. Solar cell seating. Good. Actually, let's lift this up. That's better. This guy. There's a little break on that wire from chafing and whatnot, but it'll be alright. I hope. Okay, basically have everything seating nicely and routed where it should be, so we can start drawing this through. We'll give a little pre-bend. There we go. You know, ideally, if you had replacement button cells, that'd be like that'd be like the perfect way to do all this, you know. But again, AAA batteries are easier to find than button cells. Okay. Hold on a little bit. So there we go. That's basically back together. So to pin the case a little bit, I just cut some strips out of aluminum tape because it's thin. I just put a piece there and a piece there. You could use like a drop or two of super glue, but for me, you know, if I have to pull this apart in the future, I don't want to fight super glue. I can just slit that tape real quick and that thing will pop apart. So there's that. Alright, now we can lay this down. Kind of work the wire a little bit to make it flat. Okay, do the same thing for the other side. Little tip, depending on how cheap your zip ties are, the small ones, when you draw them through, if you pull them real fast, you can burn out the little ratcheting lock, and then they kind of just don't work after that. So just kind of draw them through nice and smooth. Alright, trim these up. We'll be good to go. Alright. Now we can get this chucked up in here, and then we can start figuring out how long we need to make our leads. There we go. Alright, the battery in there. Feel pretty good about just connecting them as is. With the wire that came with this, and then the length of these leads, and then that way I'll have a decent service loop. So that feels pretty good. So we'll get these prepped and connected together. Alright, got all our wires tinned, got our heat shrink tubing ready to go, so fire in the hole. Alrighty. Like a total noob. Oh, fuck. could have made it easier by, you know, twisting the wires together, but this works just as good. Why not do things harder? There. Not bad. Bada bing. Bada boom. Alright, get our heat shrink on. I'll do a 2-for-1 deal here. Okay. Grab Mr. Heat Gun. And then before we slip these over, let this cool down, because sometimes when you go to put it on, the heat from this will shrink it on you, and you got no time to react. Okay. Okay, it's about centered. Come on now. Alright, centered. Alright, so now we got ourselves a happy little shade. And the added benefit to these switches is that, you know, I can shut the batteries off while it's in storage. I don't have to worry about the batteries running down for any reason if this thing triggers on. So, I'd say that's pretty good. Let's get this thing together. Pop the knob out. And add a little band of electrical tape, just for good measure, to secure these covers. Because on these models, they kind of pop loose easily. Alright. What would be the most logical way? Okay. Tucked in. Alrighty. Our nut back on. Finger tight's all you really need. And our dial. Alrighty. I'm just gonna button up these. You get the idea. I'll do that off camera and we'll come back to it. Alright, there we go. Got ourselves a Franken helmet. Now, I admit, those wires, they're not the prettiest thing. Zip tie would look great. But like I said, you know, if you didn't have a zip tie handy, you'd just be using wire or something anyways. But maybe I'll put a zip tie in the future. So, let's fire this baby up and see what we got. Alright, we're at the tube lights again. This is with the batteries off. And this is with the batteries on. Boom. Alright. Adjust the shade here. Oh yeah, that's working beautifully. Nice. Well, there we have it. A low budget welding helmet modified for better serviceability. Got our safety chevrons and our message. So hopefully this repair video, modification, helps someone out there. And if you made it this far into the video, remember to always support the right to repair, world peace, and get out there and fix something.